So hello everyone. You may know me as Elam or ILQM. I am a two-time regional champion and I don't really do YouTube videos, but I decided to do a YouTube video for this specific topic because it seems pretty interesting, so let's get to it. As you have probably seen in the title, I'm gonna be talking about some potential fixes to one-turn lag, some stuff that I've been testing for the past couple of days, and yeah, I'm just gonna be going over those. I don't want to extend this video too much because I'm not really a yapper. I just want to get the information out there because I thought it was pretty interesting. If you play PvP, you probably will be interested because we all know how frustrating it is to come in late into the game, like a one-turn lag or even two-turn lag sometimes. So this video is going to be divided in two parts. As you guys know, there's teams of 3 whenever you're playing PvP, and obviously there's your lead and your back to Pokemon. So this very first part is going to address whenever it could be one of your 3 Pokemon, it doesn't necessarily have to be your lead. As long as one of your 3 Pokemon has been knocked out, you're able to see the countdown timer or the countdown timer screen wherever you can see the 2 Pokemon on your screen to select, and you have like a 10-second timer to pick one of the 2. So this very first part is going to be going over that. Okay, so this is quite simple. Basically, you have the 3 of your Pokemon. Whenever your first Pokemon gets knocked out, or one of the 3, you are going to be seeing the countdown timer with the screen where you can select which of the 2 Pokemon that you have in the back you want to bring in. In this case, I have a Shadow PG and a Swobad. But what you're going to do instead of tapping which of the 2 Pokemon you want is that you're going to minimize your app and then go back into it within the 10-second timer. If you do this, this will, for some reason, guarantee that you have no one-turn lag. So I'm going to put a video probably so that you guys can see it, but yeah, that's basically it. That's literally part 1 is very, very simple. Alright, so as you guys were able to see, that was quite the easy solution slash fix, or yeah, I don't exactly know why that works. I have a couple hypotheses, theories, however you want to call it, but at the end of the day, I'm not completely sure why it works, but I can tell you I have tested it hundreds of times. I've also asked friends to test it for me, and they've also confirmed the same behavior. I have tested it on an iPhone 16 Pro Max, but I have friends that have tested it in older versions of iPhone as well as Android, and they have all confirmed the same exact behavior as me. So yeah, before I continue with anything, I want to say that if you guys want to test it yourselves and you ever notice that even though you're following the steps, you're still coming in late, please record it and please send it to me, because I have tested it hundreds of times and I have never had one-turn lag after following the steps. So if you could, please, that would help me a lot, because that would prove that my solution is not as reliable, and it was probably all cope. But yeah, as I was saying, I would appreciate if you share that recording with me and tell me a little bit about what you did, and the video would be probably more than sufficient. The next thing I want to do is answer some questions that I wrote down. I have them right here because I thought about it a little bit, at least for part 1 of the solution. The very first question I have is, does this involve exploiting the game by stalling your clock? If you have played GBL, like, this is not secret to anyone. This is how should I say it? It's an immoral way to play the game, which is that if you minimize your app after your charge move, the game is going to be stalled. So you're going to be stalling the clock. This will make the clock run out much sooner. So if you're locked into a matchup and your opponent or yourself are stalling the clock, then the 50-second timer is not as meaningful. It would probably last much less time. Obviously, this is exploiting the clock, cheating, to be honest. But so the question is, are these two related? Because we're minimizing our app, right? So I think in this case, they are not related. Why do I think that? Because there's the 10-second timer that you get at the top of your screen once your first Pokemon has been knocked out. And then you're gonna have the back two Pokemon. So you have to minimize your app and get back into it within the 10 seconds. Whenever you open your app again, you will notice that the timer has still been running. So you're technically not stalling the clock to get this to work, or you shouldn't have to be doing that. So in that case, I don't think they're specifically related. I wouldn't say that you're clock stalling or abusing an exploit of the game. Is this the normal behavior? I don't know what to tell you, because the game has an inconsistency that we're all aware of, which is 1 turn lag, sometimes 2 turn lag. So this is just a quote-unquote band-aid fix to this problem. Alright, so now that we're done with part 1, which honestly was quite straightforward, quite simple, I would say, we can move on to part 2, because part 1 definitely helps with the secondary Pokemon that we bring in, right? But we have 3 Pokemon, so we can guarantee that our secondary Pokemon doesn't have 1 turn lag on bring in, but what about the third one? So that's when part 2 comes into play. And you guys might be wondering, how do you translate part 1 into part 2? The thing is that with part 1, we have a very clear point where we can start doing our fix, or a quote-unquote fix, which is when our first Pokemon has been knocked out, we have a 10-second timer to bring in our second Pokemon. And so that's quite straightforward, but whenever two of your 3 Pokemon have been knocked out, your third Pokemon is going to be coming in pretty much immediately, or at least that's the normal behavior of the game. So while part 1 technically doesn't require you to do any sort of clock stalling or exploiting the way the game works, part 2 isn't quite as healthy. If only one of your 3 Pokemon has been knocked out, then you get the countdown screen to pick your second. However, if 2 of your Pokemon have been fainted and you immediately minimize your application, there will be a hidden 10-second timer, which, I don't know, I guess Pokemon Go adds to account for any sort of unintended behavior, most of the time involving lag. And well, my hypothesis is that whenever we come back into the application, as long as it's within the 10 seconds of the hidden timer, our third Pokemon will be guaranteed not to come in late. And well, this also includes whenever your opponent uses a charge move that knocks you out, and whenever you throw a charge move on a low HP Pokemon and your opponent's fast move feints your second Pokemon. In all of these scenarios, I have not entered in late when following the steps. The thing is that I have tested quote-unquote part 2 a much lesser number of times compared to part 1, with a sample size of roughly 60. And this is mainly because of how much later I figured this out, and the fact that I can only test it in friendly battles. Because, again, this one is very clearly exploiting your clock to get it to work. Alright, so let's talk about this quote-unquote fixes that we've been discussing for the past, I don't know, couple minutes. I don't believe that part 1 is inherently cheating, mainly because you're staying within the 10 seconds that the game gives you, even though you're minimizing the app, which is probably not the intended behavior. The problem more for me comes with part 2, which technically fixes the one turn lag problem, but this requires you to exploit the way the game works. Even though this exploit, at least on the example that I showed, it was like a 2-second delay of the timer. Even though that was the case, you're technically exploiting the way the game works. So it doesn't matter the amount of time, even if it was half a second, you're technically doing it. So why am I sharing this? Mostly like from a technical and I guess curiosity driven perspective. I just wanted to put the information out there. And I'm not encouraging anyone to exploit the game or cheat or stall their clock. I don't want that. But yeah, it also technically could go against the app's intended usage or terms of service or blah blah blah. So, and I do not endorse using it for competitive advantage. I'm gonna be talking a little bit more about the Play Pokemon circuit in a second. But yeah, this is like mostly an observation of a way to fix a problem, like a band-aid fix to a problem. Yeah, it's a little bit tricky. Like I'm struggling to record this part because I don't really know how to word it. But yeah, in terms of the Play Pokemon circuit, when you're on stage, your applications are locked. Not because of this or not because you can stall your clock, but because there has been instances where players are doing like I remember one specifically where a player was doing the Moonblast animation and they accidentally minimized their app, and because of that they missed out on bubbles, so they undercharged without them wanting to undercharge in the first place. So now they lock your application whenever you go on stage. So that's not a problem when you go on stage. But on the other phones, it is definitely possible. The thing is that even though I do not think that there's any rules that specifically address this, there are some rules that are regarding cheating that are a little bit ambiguous, but that allows the judges to decide what to do themselves. So I don't think they would allow this to happen. They would consider it cheating probably. So again, I do not want anyone to be using this as a way to gain a competitive advantage. I'm just trying to put this information out there and hoping that, I guess, formerly Niantic, Scopely now, Pokemon Go, hoping that Pokemon Go fixes the application PvP and we never have to deal with one turn lag anymore. But yeah, basically that's pretty much it. This fixes one turn lag. Anyway, I think I'm gonna leave it here for today. This is an interesting video. I'm not sure what else more to say, but yeah, make sure to leave a comment and test it yourself. Follow me on Twitter, I guess. That's the social media where I spend most of my time. And we can probably discuss it if you're interested. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about all of this, and I'll be happy to see a discussion